In the opening scene, Johnny and Ruth are having a nice time with themselves under the bridge, which happens to be a private property. They start kissing, pulling their clothes apart, getting laid, smoking, drinking, and all other sorts of things, until a police vehicle comes close to them and an officer sees them and shouts, reminding them they are on private property. Seeing the police from afar, they start getting dressed in a rush, kiss themselves goodbye, and rush to different locations. As for Johnny, he runs straight to cricket training with his teammate. Upon getting to the field, he runs directly to join the team. The coach sees him, but despite being late, he allows him to join the team without saying anything. Who would have thought he would have a free pass? The training continues, and everyone acts like nothing happened. Later in the day, Johnny and Ruth go to a mart. Johnny stays outside to observe how things are going while Ruth enters. She goes to a section in the mall, sees no one looking at her, and steals a piece of a pregnancy test strip. Well, looks like they aren't just partners in love, but in crime as well. She then heads to the restroom to test herself. She spends so much time in the bathroom, and at one point, Johnny feels the need to check on her. She opens the door but closes it immediately. He has no choice but to wait for her outside. Finally, she comes outside when she is done, and they head home. 9 years later, Johnny is having a conversation with his friend Mitchell, who is driving. He explains how he lost his job by getting into a fight with his boss, Stu. This comes as a surprise to Mitchell. Being a good friend, Mitchell offers to help him get a job at a nightclub. The job requirement is, he has to be friendly. The next scene shows Johnny already working at his new job. He goes about the usual routine. He collects people's belongings while they are entering the club and gives them a tag. Then he gives them back their properties when they are done. Later, Johnny is seen arguing with a client who is a bit drunk and is requesting a certain jacket he claims he doesn't have. She eventually accepts the piece of clothing Johnny hands over to her. Also, it appears she believes the alcohol is affecting her judgment. When she leaves, her boyfriend comes to accuse Johnny of stealing, but seeing he does not have evidence, he tips Johnny for his hard work instead and leaves as well. Guess what? The jacket the lady is looking for is in the club as she claimed. And it is in fact Johnny who deliberately gave her the wrong one. Could this behavior be why he lost his previous job? In the next scene, we see Ruth, who is preparing for work. She locks up the house and heads out when she is done. She works as an assistant in Antoinette's admission office. Later in the day, one of her bosses, Ellen, comes to her to ask if she has seen the paper for the day, as regards the school. The comment made in the paper about the school puts her on the edge, because the head of admission seems to have sold them out, about how terribly expensive their school is. Now she wants to replace her. The next day, Ruth heads to the board meeting with her colleague Ashley. Unfortunately, her heels break on the way. Could this be a bad omen? We'll see. Luckily, Ashley borrows her the spare shoes she has in the school, and they both head to the boardroom. The meeting begins, and the agenda starts with the most pressing issue, the admissions department. Ruth distributes the new brochure she created, as she is now the interim head of the admissions department. Guy Brinkerhoff, the head of the board, has some observations, one of which is that the front page pictures include all white students. He expects a balanced representation of all races, but the others don't see the need for that. One of the board members even makes the comment on the need to market themselves to people who can't afford their fees. That's how expensive their fees are. Soon enough, Ashley comes to inform Ruth that she has an important call. Arthur Simmons, Johnny's coach, is late, and he and his friends are there to pay respect to him and his family. Johnny, however, brings along a girl who is wearing the jacket he stole from the club. It doesn't appear he would change his ways anytime soon. He finds it difficult to pay condolences to the coach's wife for her loss, so he steps outside with his friend. Coincidentally, Ruth is on her way to the burial ceremony. Could it be that the universe is bringing these old lovers together? On the train, and while she is waiting to get to her destination, she remembers one of the important memories she had of the coach. He helped her and Johnny out when she was about to give birth. Yeah, shocker! She was pregnant 9 years ago. Moving on, she stops at the train station and heads to the coach house. Back in the coach's house, Val, Mitchell's wife, is talking about the school their daughter, Mary, is attending. Johnny is surprised she has already started going to school. When they describe her school, he can't help but point out it is not a preschool, but an advanced daycare. He believes she should be attending a standard school, but the girl's parents insist their school of choice is just right. However, the unspoken truth is that they can't afford a standard school. Just as Val is leaving with Mary, they see Ruth coming in, and they are all surprised to see her. As if seeing a long-lost friend, all of them start diverting their attention to her. Johnny's girlfriend is surprised to see the sudden negative change in mood. Poor girl. So, she asks Johnny if she should be worried, but he refuses to make a statement. Ruth speaks to the coach's wife, and she sympathizes with her. While in the house, she observes Johnny and the other guys. She sees him flirting with another lady, and it makes her feel uncomfortable. To avoid any more awkward moments, he leaves her address with coach's wife and heads out. On getting home with some groceries, a shocker awaits Ruth. She sees Johnny already inside her house. He starts by making comments about how her lock is bad and how she needs window protection. She wonders what he's doing in her house and asks him to get out. But he doesn't plan on doing that. He even helps her to fix her door. This does not have the effect he expected because she still insists he leave. Wondering how he knows where she lives, she sees him bring out the card she dropped earlier. They continue talking, and she asks him why he is there. She eventually realizes he stayed away from her because of the coach, who will not allow him to come close. But things are about to change. Ruth insists he leaves because she feels like he does not know her anymore. She believes he does not know the kind of people she is working with, and she does not want him to know them. She gets angry when he asks her the amount she paid for the life she is living. Realizing that she really wants him to get out, Johnny eventually steps out and leaves her alone. In the next scene, while Ruth and Ashley are entering the school premises, they spot Guy, who approaches them and asks Ruth to have a word with him. She looks worried, but he assures her that she should not be worried. Maybe she should, though, because he reveals her past criminal record, one she got away with, because at that time she was a minor. Crimes like breaking and entering and resisting. She panics and asks if he wants her to resign, but he says he is only telling her to let her know that he knows. He also invites her to a brunch, revealing he also knows she's good at her job. This seems like a threat though, but we will find out soon enough. Next, Johnny goes to meet his friend, Sticker, at the apartment where he works as the doorman. As he approaches the building, a woman, Nan, is talking to someone on the phone while holding her daughter. She mentions that she wants to send some money away and does not want her mom to know. Her worried daughter asks if they have come for her daddy, but she assures her that no one is coming for her daddy. It seems she is really in a dilemma. Johnny eavesdrops on her conversation and takes a keen interest when he hears it's about money. Nan is angry and calls a cab, but she is unable to get any until Sticker helps her out. When she is gone, Johnny asks for more information about her from his friend. He reveals that Nan's husband works in finance as a hedge fund manager. He used to be at work all the time but stopped working about 3 weeks ago. Recently, he has gotten a lot of letters and envelopes delivered from lawyers. When Johnny asks more personal questions, he reminds him that his job is to simply open and close the door. Seeing the pattern of the question Johnny is asking him, Sticker knows he is up to something and reveals that he will not join him in robbing the house because he does not want to lose his job. On the other hand, Johnny feels like there is another way he can get what he wants. He notices Nan's daughter goes to the same school as Ruth, and she might be able to help him directly or indirectly. Sticker thinks he just wants to get close to Ruth, but Johnny clarifies that it is not about her. He sees a suit with Sticker and asks if he can borrow it, but he says no. Well, no eventually turns into yes. At school, Ashley notifies Ruth about a student who is trying to little kid. Ruth goes there to get things under control. The girl tells her they got robbed of their phone and wallet by some men, about the same age as Ruth. Even when she is trying to settle things, the girls don't see her as capable of handling the situation. Perhaps it's because she is asking questions like she is interrogating them. This makes the girls turn to Ellen and follow her instead because she shows them compassion. This makes Ruth feel bad. Later at night, Johnny goes to Ruth's apartment, climbs the emergency exit steps to her window, and enters her room. Ruth wakes up from her sleep, and upon seeing him, she is shocked, wondering why he is there. Their discussion starts on the wrong foot. He starts asking her questions about Nan Nobel, but she is not comfortable. She pushes him away from her bed. She wants him to leave him alone, but he is not ready to. He returns 2 wallets, and Ruth realizes he was the one who robbed the girls. She is disappointed in him, and this makes him accuse her of feeling like she is different from the rest of them. She reveals that though they have been apart for long, she did not forget about him and the coach. The coach was the only one who was there for them when their parents were not ready to take up responsibility. To prove her point, she shows him an envelope that contains his childhood pictures. This brings him to tears. Not an expected sight for someone like him. He is so emotional to the extent of requesting to collect the pictures, but she takes them back from him. He closes the window and leaves her apartment remorsefully. At the Noble family apartment, Nan is getting the kids ready for school, while her husband is just waking up from the bed to get a coffee. He then receives a call that he has an envelope at the door, which he goes to get. Just then, the phone rings and their daughter sees that the call is from their lawyer. Nan picks up the call, and Dan the lawyer starts explaining some things to her. The news she receives shatters her emotions, and she promises to call him back later. In the next scene, Nan is on a tour of the school to enroll her youngest daughter there. The process of getting admission to the school requires the parent to come to the school to get a tour of the school. Johnny is also there. It appears he has started his plan, and boy did he clean up well to look like a father who has a child to enroll in the school. Ashley introduces Ruth to the parents, and they start the tour. She begins to address them, and while at it, she sees Johnny. Meanwhile, Nan starts asking questions that sound confusing to others, but in actual truth, she's pouring out her emotions, triggered by the call she received earlier in the day. Women and emotions. She then steps out to take a call while the tour continues. Ruth approaches Johnny to ask him what he wants from her, but he claims he only wants to see where she works while going outside. Ruth is wary of the situation, but Johnny is all here for it. He goes outside to meet Nan crying. He comes across as someone ready to help her when in actual fact, he is a wolf ready to devour its prey. He approaches her, and seeing she is not ready to talk about her situation, he makes himself available to listen to her. He introduces himself to her. She starts talking too much, and in all she says, one can realize that she doesn't buy the idea of granting scholarships to the less privileged kids. All through the period they are together, Ruth watches them afar from the window. She's interrupted when Guy calls her to confirm her availability for brunch. When Johnny is done with Nan, he goes to request an application form to enroll a student. The secretary is surprised because he was supposed to have gotten that to be part of the tour, and refuses to give him any. Not the type to give up even in the most difficult situations, he charms his way into her heart by telling her that her name is beautiful. Just like a charm, she gives him a form. Johnny is in Bobby's place, and he starts filling out the application for Mary, Mitchell's daughter. Bobby feels he should have informed Mitchell, but he proceeded anyway. He claims he is doing it for Ruth because he wants her to read it. Just then, he receives a call from Sticker, who informs him about the brunch Nan is attending. He saw the invite and checked what was inside. He gives the details to Johnny, before he hands over the invite to Nan at the entrance. On the day of the brunch, Nan goes to Guy's house. Steve, her husband, is not with her, and she pleads with Guy to help them out, but he reminds her that she has a lawyer already. When she insists, he gives her a listening ear. She explains that one investor accuses her husband of trading affiliates with affiliate dealers, lying about brokers, and some audit issues. Guy is forced to give her honest advice. Honest, but the bitter truth. He reveals she might end up going to jail if she is not careful. He then ushers her in. He begins to introduce Ruth to everyone in the building. Soon, Johnny enters the building and introduces himself as a friend to Ruth. Ruth is surprised because she did not invite him, and she doesn't know how he got to know about the event. Guy ushers him in warmly. He has no idea he is bringing in a fox. Guess Johnny's game plan? He puts Nan on the spot by asking about her husband in the presence of everyone. Left with no choice, she tells everyone that Steve is going through a difficult time. Embarrassed, she excuses himself from the group. Ruth wants to go and meet Johnny to ask what he is doing, but Guy blocks her by engaging her in a discussion. Meanwhile, Johnny follows Nan to apologize for putting her on the spot. She then starts opening up to him in detail, and this gives him more information he needs. Her husband is in the middle of a public indictment. She reveals that if federal agents come to their house, everything they own will be taken away from them. He suggests that she save herself by insuring some funds somewhere so that she will not sink with her husband. She notices her clothes are wet when she enters the bathroom and decides to go back there and dry them. Johnny goes to the bathroom with her and helps her out. It is not what you think. He simply helped her. Just as Ruth is coming into the house to see him, she sees him leaving and also sees Nan coming out behind him while adjusting her clothes. This gives her the wrong impression. Later at night, she goes under the bridge close to the water to smoke and have fresh air. Meanwhile, Nan gets home and starts packing all the cash she has with some of the expensive jewelry she owns. As she is about to step outside, her husband sees her and stops her. She lies that she is returning some items she shopped for earlier. He advises her not to use a card if she is planning to shop and just pay with cash. Then he remembers that they are meeting their lawyer Dan that same day, and she must be there. Johnny, on the other hand, is waiting for Nan, as they have made plans for her to get those things to him to keep for her. Instead, he ends up meeting two of his old pals at the restaurant where they are supposed to meet. He then exchanges contact with them, as they are so insistent. Ashley has seen the application from Johnny and sees that it is good. She then goes ahead to inform Ruth about the new application, which is very good. Ruth checks the application briefly, and seeing how much Ashley likes it, she tells her to go ahead with the proper invitation. A call is put through to Johnny for the invitation, and he is excited about the news. The next day, Johnny goes to take Mary from her parents. He lies that they were going to the zoo together, but he ends up taking the child to school. At the school, Johnny sits with the other parents as someone addresses them. She reveals that it is only the parents that are allowed to bring the kids. This disqualifies Johnny, but he keeps calm. Just then, Nan rushes in with her daughter. Johnny sees her. She apologizes for not making their previous meeting. She reveals that she has packed everything and tells him to come over to pick it up later in the night. While talking about her husband, she starts getting emotional, and just as she is about to kiss Johnny, Ruth comes in, and they both stop. Nan enters, and Ruth wonders what brings Johnny to the school. She heads to the name of the child and parent and sees Mitchell. She quickly meets Johnny outside and tells him to take Mary home, but he claims her mom is coming to pick her up. Ruth does not want him to destroy her career and image in the school. While explaining her love for her job, Johnny blurts out that the kids she is catering to are not her kids, and immediately she becomes sad. She leaves angrily. Later in the day, Val goes to pick Mary up, and she sees that it is the school where Ruth is working. She tries to rush away, but Ruth tries to convince her that Mary can be in the school, but she is not ready to listen. Val goes to Bobby's shop to accuse Johnny of taking her child to school without her knowledge. She knows the new school is better, but her child was the best in the previous school, and she is worried if she gets into the new school, she won't be the best again. She is worried that her child will be struggling to fit in, because the other kids belong to the upper class. She doesn't want her child to waste her whole life trying to prove that she is good enough. Seeing that they are trying to talk her out of her orientation, she leaves. Later at night, Johnny goes to Nan's apartment as they planned, and she hands over the box filled with money and other important things there. Just when they feel they are clear, Steve shows up. He claims that the box is full of candy, and it is their daughter's donation to the Halloween fair. Even though Steve doubts what they are saying, he still follows through with the story. When Johnny is done, he takes the box out of the house. Johnny takes the box to Bobby's shop and starts putting the stuff from the box into 2 different bags. He is supposed to have resumed work because he is a little behind schedule. Ruth enters and sees the money. She challenges him, but he refuses to give the right response. She feels he stole the money by breaking into the house, but he refuses to defend himself and leaves the money for Bobby to pack while he goes to work. Ruth, on the other hand, stays with Bobby and starts asking if he truly approves of what Johnny is doing, and this questions his actions. A truly confusing situation. Johnny calls the friends he saw the other night and tells them to come to him by 3:45 a.m. to steal from him at his workplace. Meanwhile, Bobby comes to the club to hand over the bags to Johnny, and he keeps them while working without checking them. Later that same day, those 2 guys show up to steal from Johnny. They come earlier than Johnny planned, but he goes ahead with them since he has no other choice. They then carry the bags and drop them inside the boot of the car with sticker, and he drives away. Johnny then called Nan in the middle of the night to tell her he had been robbed at the club that day. This breaks her down, and she starts crying. Who wouldn't cry after losing that much money? Later, Johnny goes to check the money and realizes the bag has been filled with candy. What a shot. The con man has been outsmarted. He is angry, but at the same time, he knows who is responsible. He calls Bobby, who tells him the candy is a gift, and he should call it even. Ruth, on the other hand, has the money and takes it to Guy's house. Johnny goes to Ruth's house to break in as usual, but he is not able to. The next day, Stephen is dressing up and he wakes his wife to inform her that he is heading out. He then shares the good news about their situation. Dan negotiated a plea and charges have been dropped. There will be penalties, but he is back in business. This makes her happy and sad at the same time. She finally reveals that they have to talk. It's time to air her dirty laundry. Johnny traces Ruth to where she is and goes to meet her to challenge her for robbing him, but they excuse themselves. She reminds him that the case cannot be reported, and she will give him half of the bag. He does not want to agree to half, but she gives him no choice. She is surprised when he starts reciting her phone number in high school, which is his bank PIN. He is not ready to change the PIN, as he reveals that he still loves her. He then kisses her passionately. Stephen and Nan have been invited in by Guy. On their way to the meeting, Stephen is lashing out at his wife for the stolen money and is wondering why they have been invited. Best to say, they are the snobby, perfect match for each other. Getting there, they discover that the stolen money has been donated to the school. Guess what? This allows the school to admit 5 more students, and the invitation is to appreciate them for their kind hearts. It appears Ruth has donated the money on their behalf to the school. A complex case indeed. But what can they say but agree they in fact donated? The new development means Mary gets admitted to the school, and her parents finally accept that she will attend the school. In the next scene, we see Johnny and Ruth out on a date. Alas, they are back together. He gives her a piece of jewelry as a gift and advises her not to wear it at school. It seems to be part of Nan's jewelry. He reveals that she is all he wants. He then explains what he has been using the money for. He has been putting money in a trust fund for the kid they had. He is not that bad after all. This makes Ruth happy and emotional. Then they decide to leave, but while leaving, they make sure they steal an old couple's car key while Johnny is telling her not to leave him again. Old habits die hard. They drive the car to their destination as a loving couple.